Welcome to Powering the Future for Namibia. Today we are exploring a vital area of growth for Namibia, renewable energy that is. As the global demand for cleaner, sustainable power sources rises, Namibia is positioning itself as a leader in harnessing natural resources like solar, natural resources like wind, to create reliable and environmentally friendly energy. The sector holds great promise, not only for meeting our own energy needs, but also for creating jobs, for attracting investment, domestic investment and international investment, but also regional investment, and setting a strong example in the region. We are seeing encouraging developments in technology. We are seeing encouraging policy support for this exciting sector and collaboration that are driving renewable energy forward in exciting ways. In today's discussion, we will look closely at these developments, we will look closely at these advancements, consider the opportunities that lie ahead, and talk about how we are working to overcome the challenges that would come our way, and in fact, turning the challenges into opportunities. I'm pleased to welcome our guests in today's discussion who will bring valuable insights into the journey Namibia is taking to secure a sustainable and a prosperous energy future. Let us dive into how we are powering the future for Namibia and beyond. So thank you very much and welcome to the conversation today. In this conversation today, I'm joined by the two exquisite gentlemen here. Ben Mingeli, Senior Manager, Generation Projects in Nampower, our power utility, the national power utility, at Kuda from Sakri, the SADC Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. So today's discussion and the conversation, gentlemen, is with regard to this exciting sector, the sector that holds so much potential in Namibia's energy landscape, that of renewable energy. And I would want us now to take this conversation in various dimensions. First, I would think that to give it the lay of the land, just to look at, to explore the policy space that guides our interventions as a government, but also stakeholders, to ensure that we develop, this sector is developed. So maybe to kick off from my side, because I happen to sit in the seat of policy space, but administration thereof, is to say that the main, of course, we do have the grand vision, our vision 2030, and our aspiration, that vision, but we back it up with sector policies. So we have the National Energy Policy of 2017, specifically also the National Renewable Energy Policy, and then the National Integrated Resource Plan, which gives us the targets and the implementation framework to achieve there. One of the ambitions, as you know, colleagues, is the ambition and the objective to achieve energy security for the country, meaning that we have to be self-reliant in energy generation, but also to achieve universal access to energy by 2040, or better still, earlier. The policy call is also to make sure that we implement interventions that would allow us to ensure that the renewable energy in the whole energy mix increasingly play a bigger role. And the policy calls for about 70% or so of our energy mix to be constituted of renewable energy. Maybe, Ben, you could take this conversation much further to say, in terms of the generation, in terms of how we have proceeded from the policy baselines, how far have we gone? What investment opportunities are we putting there as a national power utility? And also the other policies that we have that would enable the private sector to help us achieve that objective, because it's not only government alone or non-power as a power utility. Maybe you can take it from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ithindi. It's a great pleasure to be part of this important conversation. I think in terms of our energy mix, we get a big portion of our energy from hydro, which is a renewable energy source. Over the last 10 years or so, I think the renewable energy industry has grown significantly. We let me say, commissioned our first utility-scale solar PV plant about 10 years ago. And now we have about 230 megawatts of renewable energy connected to the grid, which is mainly coming from solar and wind. We also have got a significant portion of our generation project that is currently development coming from renewable energy source, which is about 204 megawatt, which is currently development and are going to achieve commercial operation within the next 3 years. So even though we have moved, let me say we have achieved significant progress in terms of our renewable energy generation, we expect to keep growing and move from the current contribution, which currently is 10%, to achieve our renewable energy goals of 70% by 2030.
Okay, good. Kuda, you look renewed. You look fresh. You look refreshed. And no doubt we are talking about renewable energy. Maybe, Ben and I, we look at it, it's like insiders looking inside. You sit more at the advantage position from a SADC support mechanisms. Of course, Namibia is pleased and happy to be hosting the Sacre Center. So what is your take on this? The buzzwords for Namibia as far as energy security is concerned, we have the issue of generation, which Ben has talked about, because that's the basis to get to full energy access or universal access. But other buzzwords that are there is with regards to the affordability of energy, the access, ideally equitable access to energy, secure energy sources, but the sustainability also of the energy supply to households, to industry, what have you. So, so what is your take on renewable energy? If we focus on renewable energy, how do you see this supporting the objectives of affordability, accessibility, and sustainability going forward? Maybe you could give us some input from that perspective.
Correct. Thanks so much, Penda Ithindi. Yes, you're right that from a vantage point, exactly, we see also things also in comparison to other countries who are members of SADC and also beyond as we collaborate with other institutions. I feel the biggest challenge that we face, not only in Namibia, but also as a region, is the issue of access. Energy access is still a big challenge for us.
Right.
I don't know the latest figures, but I think the last figures that I heard was they're looking at about 46% or so without access, right? So quite a number of people out there who do not have access to clean, modern, and reliable energy services. Yes, you are making strides which are quite commendable as a country to try to address this. But I believe this needs to be really prioritized. Yes, you have a target. Initially, you had a target of, as Namibia, of 2030 universal access. Now it has moved to 2040. Yes, but I feel 2040 is too far away. If I were in that position where I don't have access to electricity, I feel those strides need to be made to ensure that we bring it forward. Because energy unlocks, we all know, unlocks a lot of opportunities. As it unlocks a lot of opportunities besides from employment, it also enables people to have sources of income. Just one of the readings I was doing recently, making comparison, to say poverty and then Human Development Index, access to electricity. There's just really that relationship. The poorer you are, the lower in terms of Human Development Index, the less access that you have to electricity. But as you said, you have so much potentials as a country, solar, wind. I think solar can go a long way to provide, especially for remote areas, rural areas. They can have that first access to energy, which brings them a bit of comfort. Especially, let's say if you go to tier 3, tier 4 of energy access, where then they are able to get into productive use. And then from productive use, they can earn some income, improve their livelihoods. So I think renewables can play a significant role, and Namibia is in that vantage position.
Okay, great. So you reminded me, you are citing figures. By the way, the national census figures just came out most recently. Of course, I mean, varying reactions to the numbers that come through, but it's also a set of information that enable us to plan much better from a policy perspective, but also to look at our strategies and whether they are delivering on the targets and the policy objectives that are set. When I looked at the numbers of recent, the access numbers average nationally seem to stand around 60% on the aggregate.
Okay.
We have 77% access in the urban setting and about 33% rural areas. Now, of course, you mentioned the rural, especially. So if we have to make great strides, we have to have concerted interventions in the rural setting, in a very geographically diverse setting as our country is. So and definitely renewables and off-grid solutions would help us in our policy toolkit to get there. But Ben, so maybe we step to the investment space. The investment that we are doing from the public sector point of view is supported by Nampower, but also from the national budget in particular. You noted that as a country, we have also pulled through to make sure that we attract the private sector also in this space. And for renewables, we're saying that there is actually very lucrative, bankable opportunities for the private sector to invest in the energy sector and the renewable energy sector for that matter. So it's from that perspective, for example, we have the independent power producers that are contributing to the scheme. We came through with the single buyer model. We modified it to a modified single buyer model in order to attract the investor community, domestic, regional or international. So from a power utility point of view, and they are a big player. So how do you find these policies delivering results? Is the IPPs contributing to the extent that the policy aspires? The MSB model, is it attracting the investors in that space? And what are some maybe of the aspects that we have to look at? If you have to look at me in the eyes as policy administrator, and from the ministry point of view as policy holder, are there further policy support that is required to ensure that crowding in the private sector to contribute to this objective works much, much better for us to make a concerted dent in the numbers that we see?
The government, through the Electricity Control Board, which is a regulator, has opened up the market to supply 30% of electricity for contestable customers. And I think that is great opportunity for private sector investments in the electricity sector. So we think that this opportunity need to be taken by the private sector. The ECB has developed the relevant market rules to allow the private sector to come in and invest in renewable energy source. and contract with contestable customers to supply 30% of their energy. We are seeing a slow penetration of in the MSB market model, probably because some of the rules were not yet in place. But I think we expect that to pick up over time, especially given the fact that we have now developed the relevant agreement to support the MSB market model. We have developed the transmission connection agreement, market participation agreement, transmission use of system agreement, and that I think over time will allow the MSB market model to penetrate, especially given the fact that there's such a big room for the private sector to come in there.
Okay, good. Maybe staying with you again, is it because you are quite specific on the deliverables and what the private sector has been able to do and what is required for us that sit in the policy space to support much better. So oftentimes when we have conversation like this and looking at the sector, you want to have a sector-wide type of approach and look at the value chains that would enable the sector to deliver much of the impact that we require, but also the supportive infrastructure that is required to deliver the results and to enable the private sector to do much better. So our ambition from policy is also to ensure that our parts, so the priority number one is to make sure that we generate the energy to meet the energy needs for the country. From that perspective, we have energy security. But we can also look at the export-led type of investment and development so that we are able as well to generate earnings from the export of energy because of the potential that we have. Now, one of the aspects that come out in and the feedback that we get is with regard to the infrastructure to transmit and distribute the energy, particularly the grid capacity. So what is NAMPA doing? We cannot avoid that in our conversation. So what are the plans and the investments that are we planning and we are deploying to ensure that our grid capacity is able to absorb the investment that's taking place in the sector and the new generation that's taking place in the sector?
Yes, that's a very relevant question. NamPower is investing or will invest approximately 7 billion over the next 5 years to strengthen our...
Billions?
Yes,
Did you say billions or millions?
7 billions over the next...
I thought maybe I did not hear what.
Of Namibian dollars.
Of the Namibian dollars, yes. 7 billion Namibian dollars over the next 5 years to strengthen...
Yeah, Kuda is used to US dollars, so it's... That will shake our balance of payments. It's US dollars.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So NamPower is investing 7 billion Namibian dollars over the next 5 years to strengthen our transmission network. Obviously, to be able to ensure security of supply, to be able to provide willing path within and connecting to the regions. We are strengthening our connection to South Africa. We are looking at connecting to Angola in the future as part of the ANA project. So NamPower is investing a lot of money in strengthening our transmission network. But given that there's still some bottleneck that need to be,
sorry for interrupting. Did you say Anna? My colleague at the office is Anna. So are you talking about my colleague, or what is Anna project? You have a project in my office?
No. The ANA projects refers to Angola Namibia transmission project. So this project will connect Namibia to Angola to obviously provide a connection to Angola and allow Angola to become an operating member of the Southern African Power Pool. So we are strengthening our transmission network to obviously connect more renewables to the grid, connect more customers to the grid, as well as making sure that the grid can evacuate power to wherever it's going. But despite that, we still need to look at resolving the bottleneck that exists in our neighboring countries to make sure that the export capacity can really be maximized. There's about 1,600 megawatt of capacity licenses for exports that that need to be we need to resolve those bottlenecks for us to be able to develop those capacities.
Okay, good. So, Mr. Kuda.
Yeah, can I
Yes,
just
please, yes.
come in on that aspect?
Please do.
To me, this is sweet news. I mean, coming from a regional perspective, where our mandate is to enhance further collaboration, deeper integration in the region. And we see these interconnections, interconnectors being those streams that will help us, pathways for us to have deeper integration. But much more important is the aspect of tariffs. You highlighted earlier on the issue of cost, we can do all other things, but we should be mindful that we need to be cost competitive. Because a manufacturer out there, at the end of the day, the bulk of the manufacturers, what they want are cheaper inputs, and the electricity being the primary input. So we need to ensure that our costs of supply come down, because we're competing with everyone in the world. Yeah, it's just not Namibia alone. Everyone wants those investors. So for us to attract those investors, we need to ensure that we are cost competitive. We need to ensure that our inputs are brought down. Of course, renewables can bring that projection in the long term. But what's more important, I think, is that mix. We need to have a mix, and a reliable mix. And with regional integration, it helps us, especially, of course, hydro. Now people are a bit skeptical because of droughts, climate change induced droughts. But hydro brings a bit of, it brings down the cost. So with deeper regional integration, we'll be able to tap into resources in the region. And at the end of the day, the cost of supply in Namibia comes lower. And then it's sweet news to the consumer. I just wanted to...
I think maybe just to jump onto that point, please just to jump onto that point, Namibia have got one of the best solar and wind resource in the world and in the region. And with our neighboring countries that has got very good hydro resource, such as Angola and Zambia, we can leverage regional trade to bring down the cost of electricity. We can maximize our installed capacity in as far as solar and wind is concerned, and we can trade that with the region to also mitigate the risk of climate change. As we are talking, Zambia is experiencing the most severe drought that they've experienced in many decades. So I think if we had those regional interconnectors, we can then maximize bilateral trade to sell or to trade the surplus solar and wind. And during the evening, we can then, trade bring back the
electricity.
Okay, great. So Kuda, you talked about the affordability issue, and for the proportion of, or the preponderance of renewables in the total energy mix. Maybe we can also talk about technology, innovation, and the collaborations in that regard. Because if we are looking at the whole value chain type of approach, investment that would be required for us in the renewable energy sector, it's not only in the generation, but you could also have investments in the intermediate inputs that are required for a robust renewable energy subsector emerging. Investments in solar modules, in inverters, batteries, and so on. So from the regional perspective, and you have better bird's eye view on how member states in the SADC region have been able to leverage technological innovations, and also develop some indigenous or homemade technologies to make locally made technologies to support an emerging industry. Do you have some perspective to share as to what potential is out there for Namibia and Namibians in particular to start participating in these value chains and the value shares, and what potential investments in the value chain type of thing that could make a sustainable industry emerging?
Yeah, I want to bring this to from another angle of critical minerals.
Good.
Critical minerals, of course,
Yeah,
there's
good
always an
angle.
argument.
Good
yeah?
angle. Yeah.
Yeah, for someone to say what is critical, what might be critical to you is not critical to me. But I think there's a consensus that as the region or as the world transition to a cleaner future, there are certain minerals that are required to drive that transition. For example, the wind turbines would require a lot of these minerals, including copper, nickel, and others. The batteries, we are now moving to electric vehicles, and electric vehicles, we know they require batteries. It's just a recent study done by the International Energy Agency indicating the amount of kilograms of critical minerals required per vehicle. There is more for the electric vehicles of critical minerals required per kg of critical minerals compared to a conventional vehicle. So meaning that as the globe is moving towards a cleaner energy supply or cleaner technologies, your electrolyzers, electric vehicles, wind converters, solar panels, and the like. So there's a demand for these critical minerals. And the good thing as a region, as Namibia and others, these minerals are here in the region. So I think we need to have that strategic view to say, okay, what is our role as Namibia, as a region in this transition? We need to drive. We shouldn't be spectators here. We shouldn't be exporters of raw materials or even semi-processed. We need to play a part in the value chain. Now the question is, how do we do that? There are quite a number of policies that we do. I was reading recently from Asia, some countries in Asia. Of course, Namibia, I understand they've put a ban on lithium. So is some of your neighbors. But what then others have done, like in Asia, where they've put a ban, yes, that's one thing. But they've also invested now in converting these raw materials into usable technologies, start manufacturing those batteries. I think there is a big role that we can play in manufacturing these batteries. Even assembling of vehicles, and we should progress. We can start off by assembling, and then we start learning we start learning on the ropes, and then we start putting in policies, localization policies, to say, okay, now if you want incentives like this, then here we need convert this copper that we have into some valuable assets, convert these batteries, so that then you can get further benefits. So I'm just throwing some ideas to say, as a country and as a region, let's take advantage of these resources that we have to drive the global transition.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's the policy push as well. You said we put a ban on lithium, but raw. So we do not. It's basically the policy push is to enable us to say that we need to increasingly want to realize beneficiation of these critical raw minerals and not to export them in a raw form. But definitely, yes, we are looking for investors that could put up shop in the country, in Namibia, or in the SADC region for that matter. But of course, in Namibia, because we have all what it takes, it's a logistical setup is the best, the policy stability is there. And if we could have consumer or final product type of like car batteries, as you are saying, that is really one of the best investment attraction that we wish to realize for the country. But Ben, let me come back to you. I want to nudge you again into affordability issues, but more for households, for communities out there. An average Namibian, so we are appreciating from the latest evidence the access gap. And we are saying that renewables could actually enable us to plug that gap much, much faster and realize better access much faster than the 2040, which Kuda is challenging us to look at. So what would be what would be, but there are also, we have to demystify things, so sometimes we say that renewables, is it a reliable source of energy? Would I be able to do my basics with that energy access? Can I have clean cooking? Could I be able to do as an entrepreneur to fix a few things, do welding here and there, put money in the pockets, in my pockets? So what are the, from your perspective, and maybe you could shed the light on this, what is the benefits to communities out there, to households? We talked more about the industry, commercial type of setting, but for an average Namibian sitting somewhere Kamwati, wanting to have access to reliable energy and to be able to engage in entrepreneurial and the quality of life at household level, what are the benefits to communities and average Namibian to embrace renewable energy solutions?
Yeah, I think solar and renewable energy in general is going to play a big role in terms of bridging the electrification access or electrification rate in the country. So as you know, Namibia is a sparsely populated country, and it's difficult to connect customers through the grid. So solar home system, microgrids, and mini grids are going to contribute significantly towards connecting these rural areas, providing electricity to these rural areas. And I think we need to demystify the perception that solar is not perhaps not as reliable as the grid, because it can be reliable as the grid. Perhaps the challenge that we need to address is affordability issues. Obviously, rural area may not be able to, or communities in rural area may not be able to afford solar home systems. So we need to look at the financing aspect, the solar revolving fund, and see how do we make it more accessible, more affordable to the rural areas to be able to put up these solar home systems and basically grow the grid from the ground up, so that you can start with solar home systems, and then as the density increases, you can grow to microgrids, mini grids, until a point where you connect these communities to the grid. At the end of the day, you will have reliable access to electricity throughout.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I think solar can bridge that gap, especially when you look at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 access to electricity, because you can scale up your solar home systems as your demand grows. You can add more solar panels, you get more batteries as your need for electricity and as your consumption increases.
Okay, excellent. So some of the collaborations that we have in the sector, and what actually development partners and bilateral partners have brought to the fore, has been to say how best we could roll out solar solutions, especially in the rural settings, but also in urban settings, to say, how do people actually out there optimize on their electricity bills? How would rooftops, for example, are able to support households to cope with the cost of energy that Kuda is talking about? So we have been working very closely, and we are happy to have the support, for example, through GIZ. We have Get Transform project, for example, and we have been able, through that support, to roll out and having specific investments that supplement our own national interventions, like the Solar Revolving Fund. We collaboration with the World Bank, as you know, we have been looking at the affordability aspects, and they do empirical studies that would help us to identify what are the least cost manners we can deliver access to electricity, and in what combination, in what mix. And we are looking forward to that study, and actually to become more techno-savvy, use artificial intelligence to be able to say what are the best routes to get to connect point A to point B. And we are trying to deploy that wealth of knowledge to be able to make it impact at the least cost. So, say Sakren, our center, in terms of the collaboration, in terms of the support systems, whether it's research, whether it's knowledge products, what is the center supporting member states to make advancements in all these matters, especially in the renewable energy sector?
Yes. Yes. Basically, our as you know, our mandate is driven by the member states, and you are the ones who give us the mandate and also give us direction in areas where you would like us to work on and support. I think one of the key activities that we've been involved in is supporting the entrepreneurship side of things. We believe entrepreneurs have a big role to play to complement what utilities like NamPower are providing, and also the fact that they have direct contact with the consumers. In most cases, it's much easier for them to understand and provide solutions that are tailor-made to these communities and consumers. So we've been supporting entrepreneurs through capacity building, and then linking them up also to financing institutions. We also have been, as you are aware, that as a region, you adopted the water energy food nexus, meaning that any development in the energy sector should also consider the water sector, should also consider the food sector, because we need to be food secure as a region. We are importing a lot of food from across the oceans.
Right.
And with our good soils, our good climatic conditions, we shouldn't be doing this. But with the abundant solar that we have, abundant wind that we have, we can use this to pump water, to provide gardens. Every community should have a garden, should be self-sufficient, feed itself, and then, of course, look at exporting. So we've been piloting the water energy food nexus in Namibia. For example, in the Zambezi region, we put up a water pumping facility for a small garden. We've also done the same in Zambia, Botswana, Angola, and Malawi. We've drawn some lessons. The lesson that we've drawn here is that we cannot walk alone as the energy sector. We need to bring a lot of others into the game, especially those that are involved with community development. How do you bring communities in and support? Energy is only, we are providing a fuel. So then people have to use this fuel to improve their livelihoods. So again, another aspect that we've been working on standards. We want to avoid the issue of proliferation of substandard technologies. Electricity is expensive and it can be fatal. You touch a substandard product not connected properly, can get electrocuted. So we've been developing standards and ensuring that these standards are harmonized. And also that helps to bring in the price, because someone once said a poor person cannot afford a chip, because if you buy something cheap and then of poor quality, it within a few moments is dead. You have to buy again, but you don't have the resources to buy again, so you cannot afford cheap. So we have been working on the standards, and also the other thing that now we are really looking at is empowering women, especially those that are in.
How about youth? Okay, women and youth. How about men? Are they left out?
It's because
must
tough one.
I feel excluded?
The man is being left behind. That's unfortunate, but we still see a lot of barriers for women to enter this sector. That's why we really want to support them. So those are some of the activities that we've been involved in. But maybe in conclusion, I want to come back to this issue that we'll be talking about, access.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. When he mentioned $7 billion dollar figure.
Yeah, that is just on the transmission side.
On the transmission, I thought he was talking of access.
There's also
grid.
Yeah.
Grid strength and capacity.
Yeah, but when I heard that amount, I thought, wow, so he's talking about access. Now that we're going to solve all the access.
If he talks about access and generation, it's more of billions, not
exactly.
Billions.
Exactly. But the point I wanted to raise was that linking to access and enterprise, development. I think we need to take advantage of this energy poverty we have into an opportunity.
Yes.
If we can transform industries, if we can put a little bit more resources. We did a study for Namibia particularly, where we identified the number of transformers that are required to attain universal access, and especially energy efficient transformers. If we can put efforts to capacitate local industries to at least assemble energy efficient transformers in Namibia, these transformers manufactured or assembled by local Namibian companies can be used now to electrify communities, can be used to maybe even make some of the cables, manufacture some cables here, manufactures all the ancillary equipment required for electrification. It will require, of course, some billions of dollars, but I think the ripple effect is quite immense. One would have addressed the issue of access, but also issue of industrialization would have brought in some industries that are unique into the country.
No, I know conversations like this can be quite captivating. We may have a whole day talking about. And this is really what is coming out, the excitement and the opportunities that are abound in the renewable energy sector in general, but in Namibia in particular, because of the potential that Namibia has, given all the abundance in terms of radiation, in terms of also what wind energy could come, and the biomass part of it, when you look at it. But so talking about enabling industries and domestic industries to start participating in the value shares and the value chains, that kind of thing, from SACRE point of view, what message do you have for us? Other countries probably have different incentive and the support mechanisms that they deploy to the industries to support these nascent industries. What has been the trend in there? What do you find? Do you find the missing links in our space that we are not supporting domestic industry much better, or we could do better in terms of incentivizing domestic industries to take up these shares?
I think, more could be done. Like I said, I think the potential that we have, taking advantage of these challenges that we have into opportunities, we need to incentivize local industries.
Okay.
It's not my domain in terms of how do we...
No, I thought that maybe you have seen the SADC picture,
yes,
and how various countries come to the fore to do that.
Exactly.
But also, not maybe to belabor and say that the work, we have been working closely with the Investment Promotion Development Board, the Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprise, and the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade, just to look at how best we could look at the sort of refurbished incentive regime that also looks at the renewables to encourage that sector. So we might be running out of time, but Ben, so how does the future looks like? What is the forward look? In terms of generation numbers? We want to plug this generation gap and realize benefits of renewables in terms of affordability that we talked about, but also realize benefits of increased access. So in terms of the numbers, you are a generation guy.
Yes.
So what is it? So what do we foresee? 2040 is too far. We want to eradicate, reduce to a bare minimum the energy poverty to its bare minimum level, to eradicate it.
The last year we recorded self-sufficient figures of around 60%, meaning that we generated 60% of our energy needs from local sources, mainly from our hydropower plant in Rokana, with the remaining coming from solar and wind energy sources. Going forward, we are developing or executing about 300 megawatts of generation projects that will be commissioned over the next 3 years, let's say by mid-2027. That will increase our self-sufficiency well above our target of 80%. In the medium to long term, we are developing about 1,300 megawatts of new generation capacities, which is also dominated by solar and wind, and also hydro. We must not forget about the Baines hydroelectric project, which is a binational project between Namibia and Angola, in which is going to complement the integration of additional renewables, or let me say additional intermittent renewable energy source. So going forward, we are targeting becoming self-sufficient and also becoming a net exporter of electricity. In the short term, I mentioned a figure of about 300 megawatt. From NamPower's investment, we are looking at about $7 billion of investment towards solar, biomass, as well as the firm power projects, such as Nehas 2.
Okay, very good. Kuda, you were challenging me on the access, the funding access that is proportionate to the level of the cap, as we are concluding. Just to indicate that in the work that we are doing with the World Bank, for example, this affordability study, those are some of the aspects that we are looking at as the ministry and the government, and we are basically putting numbers, like dollar figures to this, to say that, okay, and it's good that we have latest numbers from the national census, so one could do better programming around it. So it's to say, now with the current access baseline numbers, say 60% access. So how long would it take you, and how much would it cost you, other things being equal, to plug this 40% aggregate lack of access? So we are doing that, and we are looking at refurbishing our toolkits to come up with like the energy master plan for the country that looks at the generation, looks at transmission, all aspects, including the access. And then to say, if you look at the rural setting, for example, where you have about 33% access only, and you have about the 67% or so to percentage to achieve a near universal access, how much will it cost you? So those are the aspects that we are looking at in that study, and to say, if the policy ambition is to achieve that in 10 years' time, what is the quantum of capital and funding that you have to deploy to do that? And what are the least cost way to do it using all your geospatial information, geo information, and artificial intelligence to be able to figure out how to do that. So, gentlemen, I think we have conversed enough.
Can I just?
Yeah, the very last one, please. Yeah, I told.
Can I challenge you again?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. That yes, it's a good thing that we are looking at to put these figures, but can I challenge you that please put local content first? People who are going to participate in those figures, if you're going to say you need 23 billion or 30 billion to achieve universal access, please put a portion that should be allocated to stimulate local industries to support that electrification.
Fully agreed. And the job content that goes with it, and the multiplier effects that you have. I liked when you talked about the food, energy, water nexus, but also the SMEs and the small, medium sized enterprises that could participate. Because if we could do that and deliver energy solutions to them, that would enable them to go beyond just energy access to a household, but to enable some micro economic activity. To that great extent, I think we support microeconomic activities and ways to earn income at the household level, at micro level, and the sum total could help us to address the bigger issues of unemployment and the sticky income levels. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I think it was an enriching conversation. We can have another platform to have this discussion out there. But what I hear really for us saying is the opportunity abound for us in terms of energy generation capacity to do much better as a country. And given the potential that the country has, renewables can play a bigger role. And a combination of investment, secondly, public, private, could help us to do much, much better. If there are policy challenges, those we look at them to make sure that we do not leave constraints unaddressed in a timely manner, so that we are able to realize the policy impact. And then the local content local participation
Yeah.
is quite key if we have actually to own the industry and to have not only wealth creation for anybody else, but also wealth creation locally. Thank you so much for the enriching discussion.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Penda
thanks.
Ithindi.